this one, isn't it? Can't.
Have you used this?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this licensing committee. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it's likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. May I remind members to declare any interests when this item is raised on the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Mrs Borman, have we received any apologies for absence?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillors Gorton and Sankey. Councillor Mayo and Gerard are substituting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Borman. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to be made at this time? No? Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the previous licensing committee held on the 25th of March 2025. Are these minutes approved? Agreed. Thank you very much. 1 second whilst I sign these. Items 4 to 11, minutes of the licensing subcommittees held between the 24th of March and the 22nd of September 2025. Unless anyone has any objections, I'm going to take these minutes together.
Councillor Gibson.
Councillor Gibson, yeah.
Chair, just on there, item 11, there's just a typo on the year.
On page 2.
Page 2.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. We'll get that updated and that's fine. Apart from that change, if everyone's okay taking them together, there's myself and Councillors Gorton, Cuthbert, Parker, Pound, Davies, Sankey, Marsh and Gibson, who all formed the various subcommittees. Are you all happy with the minutes? Agreed. Thank you. I will also save you the torment of me signing them all right now and sign them at the end for you. On to item 12, the taxi policy. The DFT have published the taxi and private hire vehicle licensing best practice guidance for licensing authorities in England, which sets out guidance that is primarily intended to assist licensing authorities in setting their local policy. This report considers this the consultation responses to the proposed revisions before agreeing adoption. Mr. Adams, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to highlight, obviously the consultation responses are there as Appendix 1, and that's been received through the Council's online consultation portal. As Appendix 2, there is also an independent response from Treble 20 Cars, who's one of the larger operators in the borough, and that's there as Appendix 2. What we've done in page 40 of the agenda, 1.6, I've just tried to look at the areas where officers have considered the responses from the trade, and we've set out the changes that we've made to the policy in response to the consultation responses. I think generally the biggest concern raised was around the licensing points-based enforcement system, and whether that was particularly a disproportionate implication for operators that operate a number of vehicles, because obviously they would potentially be more subject to the point system. It's just a clarification in the policy that the policy already did state that the issuing of points against a driver who is an employee will not necessarily result in issuing points to the employer. And in response to that consultation, we've also looked to reduce the period of time that points stay effective against the driver, the operator, the vehicle proprietor's record. What we've also done, again, just to put the onus on the driver, is to formally require, which is in line with the DFT's guidance, a walk-around check that any driver taking over sort of custody of the vehicle at the start of their shift or the start of the day should undertake. We have included a model which is provided by the DFT check sheet, but we have built into the conditions that obviously operators and drivers can use their own check sheet as long as we're just happy with the content of that. The changes to that effectively sit around pages 122, 147 and 144. The other thing that we've done is looking at the assessment of previous convictions element of the policy, which is Appendix A to the actual full policy, which starts on page 100, is we have also applied the Institute of Licensing, have recently published some guidance which sets out a slightly different approach, a more progressive approach to dealing with drivers with points on their licence. Previously at 7 points, they would come to a licensing subcommittee, and under the policy they were deemed to be unfit. What we've done now is to introduce the recommendation that effectively they can do a driver assessment, providing they pass that assessment with whatever, then effectively it negates the need to sort of take formal action. If they refuse to take the assessment or they fail the assessment, then they would still come to the licensing subcommittee in relation to that. So hopefully that addresses some of the concerns that were raised within the consultation document. I think that's probably all I need to say. I'm sure there might be some questions. Happy to answer those, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Yeah, I think it's very good that there's some changes to the policy based on some of the feedback that's or the concerns that are being raised. Obviously, the taxi trades, very worried about what these changes might mean to them, and being able to clarify that to them is very, very important. Happy to. I don't know if anyone's got any questions at the moment, but Councillor Marsh.
Just a very small point, but we've got the survey.
Would you mind using your a mic?
Should be that are in colour on the screen. Here it isn't in colour, which can be a bit difficult to follow if anybody wants to. There's several pages. Please.
So I think some of this stuff, or some of the agenda certainly would have benefited from some colour, and I guess if there's any queries on any of this stuff, we can discuss it now. We can certainly take away the fact that it would be beneficial later. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming that these changes are being implemented across the board, or very similar changes. Are we aware of any negative impacts that have been reported as a result of changes like this?
It's the DFT's guidance, and it is only guidance, is looking to provide sort of a standard set of local policy terms and conditions across the country. I think in the main, they are generally well received, and lots of, the majority of the local authorities are all pushing towards implementing them. Particularly around the points system that we're introducing for drivers. We've used a scheme that is used in other local authorities, and we've adapted it for Brentwood. When they brought the scheme in, it didn't suddenly cause a massive raft of additional issues. I think it's well received. And I think with anything, it's like this, we do meet with the taxi trade group on a number of occasions throughout the year. And if we feel at any time things aren't working, we're happy to review that and reflect on that once it's in place. But,
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the officer. I read earlier in this week about the change of licensing from four persons to to less than 4 persons. Is that correct? What's the rationale behind that? Because some of the taxi drivers saying that you're going to create more queues sounds like it would actually spread the business. But what's the rationale behind that, and what's the feedback on it?
So I think that there is a little bit of confusion in relation to some of the responses. The change in the vehicle capacity is only for private hire vehicles. Those vehicles are booked in advance. Your carriage vehicle that is on the rank outside the stations, etc., they will still have to have a minimum capacity of 4. The idea of the reduction of the capacity is that smaller vehicles can be used, more environmentally friendly vehicles can be used. And actually, when somebody is booking the thing, because it can only be pre-booked, that they know at the point of booking how many passengers are going to take. So the operator won't send out a 2-person vehicle for a booking for 4 people sort of thing. So it's just a way of, enabling different styles, different types of vehicles to be used. We haven't got vehicles, used for there, albeit, some vehicles within Essex, some authorities in Essex, have licensed things like smart cars and things like that, so that, that's for 1 passenger. But there may be a business need for that, it might be that can serve, parts of the borough, having a smaller vehicle, make it more cost effective.
Just, I guess there's still going to be 6-seaters, etc. It's not going to be reducing the capacity for the operators.
No, not at all. I mean, they can still have up to an 8-person vehicle if that's their business model effectively, and that changes for the private hire side of it. We didn't want to see Hackney carriages that should be available for immediate hire to only be able to take 1 or 2 passengers. The expectation is there should be at least 4 passengers in relation to Hackney carriages.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. If I can ask a couple of questions regarding the operators. So we've had one response from 2020. Just a quick question. Was that the only operator that actually responded to the survey, first and foremost?
I believe it was. I would have to check the unredacted version. I don't. Yeah, I'm relatively confident we've had no other operators. Some of our drivers are driver operators. It's a single person vehicle, so there may be some responses for people that just operate their own vehicle.
My actual main question is actually around with the point system, and I may have missed this because there's quite a lot here, but what is the point threshold for operators? Because it's 20 points for vehicle drivers, but I may well have missed it, but what is the threshold there, just so we can understand the risk to operators of accumulated points?
So the threshold for operators is again 20 points. But I think, the mitigation for that, most of the offences that would attract the smaller number of points, not wearing your lanyards, the vehicle having damage to it that's not been reported, etc. From what we're saying from the policy, the intention is that would be looking at the driver in relation to that. The offences that the operator are more likely to attract are things like, a driver that's driving a vehicle that hasn't got a licence, their licence may have expired, etc. But I think, without looking it up exactly, that would be a 20-point offence, originally. So it's something that shouldn't happen. It's a criminal offence as well that could be prosecuted. But, we are very clear in the policy that, it's really, whilst a larger operator could be at risk of accumulating lots of points, if they've got lots of drivers that are causing lots of issues, we would need to show that the operator is at fault as part of that before we look to issue the points against them.
That seems quite a low threshold to me. Doesn't give you much room for manoeuvre, does it, when you've got 20 to 50 cars that you're operating? So is that the sort of national standard for these point schemes, to have the same threshold for a single vehicle as per the operator?
Yeah, I mean, there is no sort of national threshold. There is no sort of national scheme. I mean, when you look at the columns, there's a lot more points that can be awarded against the driver. A lot of the offences in there is no mark against that. Obviously, there is. So if an operator doesn't notify us of they've changed their address or contact details, etc., they're going to get 5 points as the first offence sort of thing, but they wouldn't be subject to any of their drivers or vehicle proprietors as a result in that. Most of the offences, as I say, would predominantly fall to the driver, the person that's driving that vehicle, because that's the more likely route. Commonly the sort of offences that we're seeing, drivers not wearing their badges, drivers with no door stickers on, drivers with unreported damage to their vehicle. What the daily walk-around check that we've introduced will be the operator's evidence that either the driver hasn't undertaken the check properly, but also it gives the driver something to say, well, I've checked this, I've reported it to the operator, and they've not acted upon it, sort of thing. So it does work both ways. I think it is something that is subject to review. Any action, just because you get to 20 points, potentially means you're going to be referred to the licensing subcommittee. There's no, within the scheme, there's no, you get to 20 points, you get a suspension, you get X, Y, and Z. The committee has complete discretion as to what they want to do with that. So I think, hopefully the committee would listen to reason, should an operator find themselves before that and have the ability to explain why they've accumulated those points. If the committee felt it was unfair, they have the ability to say, right, well, there was no further action in relation to that. I honestly don't think we'll see that situation, because I don't think the operators will necessarily attract the level of points unless they do something themselves that is going to cause for concern. this scheme, we've modelled it on other schemes in other authorities, and one of our officers worked in one of these authorities where this scheme was in place, and I don't think she said they've ever referred an operator you know, for an issue that didn't relate to them doing something like using a driver that didn't have a driving licence. So.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Gerard.
Yeah, my question is more about the enforcement side, and apologies if this is common knowledge, it's the first time on this committee. So you're introducing this new policy, and I've got no issue at all with what you're proposing. So in terms of enforcing and making sure that drivers are compliant, are you having to introduce changes to your ways of working for this?
I mean, not specifically. I mean, we will introduce our database system, the codes, the record keeping side of it, but there are fields there we just need to populate that information. That's you know, something that's easily done. Officers are out and about doing roadside checks, you know, walk arounds and various things, you know, all the time. I think by doing this, it just gives a very consistent approach to how we deal with infringements. You know, so if we see a driver with a badge, they would normally get a written warning from us to say, don't do it again. If they get it the second time, you know, it's potential that we'll say, look, you know, refer you to committee. I will say in the main, you know, most of our drivers are very good. You know, we don't really get a lot of issues. There is a small minority of drivers that we occasionally think, oh, not you again, sort of thing. You've done the same thing. And I think that will highlight those drivers and almost give them the incentive to really make sure they are compliant with their conditions. But yeah, there's no additional enforcement for us. I think it just makes it a little bit more transparent as to how we will deal with infringements that we find when we're out there.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Councillor Minor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think those are good questions. One thing that was highlighted in terms of the way the report is phrased, there's a there's a phrase which is on in terms of the wording, which is on page 137. It's not said in so many words, but one of the options when licence holders are brought before the subcommittee, the last one of the bullet points there explains that the subcommittee can refer the matter back to officers with a recommendation for penalty points to be issued. And because it says issued under the scheme, it sounds like that's just rubber stamping, as it were, because, you know, whatever the points that the scheme says is the points that would be issued. But it has been clarified that it is an option which is in front of the subcommittee to vary the number of penalty points. So, and I think the other thing that's worth saying is, you know, we have very good taxi operators in Brentwood. The whole point about these sorts of things is it only applies if you're not doing the job that you're supposed to be doing. The concerns that were expressed certainly by Treble 20 in their response to the consultation, a lot of that had to do with the concern that things that were being done by multiple drivers and were wrong with multiple vehicles could impact them as operators. But as the table shows, and it has already been explained, there are a number of things that don't apply. They would affect the points as far as the drivers and the vehicles are concerned, but they don't affect the operators. So I think some of that is already in what's being presented to us tonight, that it's not such an issue. And there's a dialogue involved when it comes to the subcommittee, and also there's the possibility for review. It is a suck it and see process. If for whatever reason, even though if it hadn't caused problems elsewhere, it's seemed to be causing some kind of problem in Brentwood, we can clearly come back to that. It's not the role of this committee or this council to make life difficult for the operators. We want them to operate their businesses in an appropriate way, which is what they're doing. So clearly would need to be reviewed, looked at again, and Mr. Adams has already explained that. So I think those are positives.
Thank you, Councillor Minor. Yeah, I think that's exactly the point here, that we have the ability to bring this back if it isn't fit for purpose, if there are issues, I think we need the checks and balances, and some of these things we've got other examples around the country, but you know, we need to see what works for us. So I think it's very important that we have, with the licensing subcommittee, the ability to look at things with, you know, from slightly different angles, and we have the ability to change the points that are issued, and you know, that may be able to deal with any sort of slight nuances with the system. I do have one question of Mr. Adams that I just wonder if you could advise whether you feel there would be anything to worry about with people registering in other more lenient authorities. There have been sort of drivers registering with other authorities and working in different locations, and I just wonder if you feel there might be any issues with that, with this.
I think I don't particularly think there will be an issue with this being the cause of drivers to go and seek licensing at other authorities that it's much easier or quicker to obtain a licence with. I mean, we've already looked at, you know, as part of the original recommendations to change things like the knowledge test to remove, in line with the guidance, the topographical element for a private hire driver. It's still there for a Hackney carriage driver. And certainly anything that we're introducing is only going to try and align ourselves fully with the national standard across the country. And I know the government are considering at the moment whether that guidance is going to become more of a sort of statutory instrument and almost a requirement on local authorities, just to ensure there is that level playing field. What seems to be the attraction for other people moving to other authorities is the speed and the ease that they can get a licence. And I'm confident, you know, that we can licence people as relatively easy and as quickly as others, providing that they, you know, understand our rules, providing that they apply for things on time, and providing that things like their DBS checks come back, you know, fairly quickly, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm confident it won't deter people from looking to licence in our area.
All right, thank you. Obviously, there's all the taxi trade always say that they're, you know, searching for drivers, and we don't want to make things more complicated for them, or much more complicated for them. And yeah, you know, we want to be here to try and help things as well. So yeah, thank you. So I mean, I'm happy to. I'm supportive of this this change. I think we've got the ability to review things if we need to, and I think a lot of the recommendations are sensible, and some of them you know, you almost wonder why they're not there already. Just to confirm, there are two recommendations. R1, to consider the consultation responses to the revised Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy, and R2, agree that the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licensing policy as an Appendix 3 be adopted and will come into effect from the 1st of November 2025. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that, unless anybody wanted to do it on a cross-party basis. I will second that.
Thank you very much. Based on that, if there's no more questions, we go to the vote.
Show of hands.
Show of hands, please. Thank you. All those in favour? Yes.
It's unanimous.
Excellent. I do like this committee. Item 13, licensing fees and charges, page 151. This report sets out the process and methodology for the setting of licence fees associated with licence applications under the remit of the Licensing Committee, and proposes the licensing fees for consultation where necessary for the 2026/2027 financial year. Mr. Adams, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's really a great deal I need to say in addition to what's already in the report. I think the important thing is Appendix One is the set of trading accounts that shows sort of income over expenditure and how we effectively apportion that across all the different licensing areas. Appendix 2 is the proposed fees and charges for the coming financial year, and sections 1.15 through to 120 just explains where we are increasing the fees and charges. Generally for the taxis, Hackney Carriage and private hire drivers fees, there's a small increase, but private hire vehicles, Hackney Carriage vehicles, there's no increase, and the same for the taxi operators, private hire operators, and for most of the other licensing areas there is a small increase in line with CPI, just to reflect the additional costs that for the provision of the service. You know, everything is going up, wages and the cost of providing the services, so it's just a reflection of that increased cost to the council. I think that's probably all I need to say. I'm sure there may be some questions. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Adams. So, well, it's quite straightforward. It's obviously we've seen this all this information, or some of this information. It's been revised over from the previous meetings, but we've had this a couple of times. It's personally, it's good to see the price increases are sort of fairly level, and as you say, minor for the majority of them, and increases of CPI. One of the things that has come up, or that is still there, which was brought up at the previous meetings, was the recharge fee from Rochford, or to Rochford, which was always a question, and I would just like to get some clarification on that, as that figure is obviously still in there. Mr. Adams, if you wouldn't mind letting everyone know where we are with that, and we can then discuss that as well.
Yeah, so in relation to the recharge under the one team arrangements, so when I say this year, that was effectively last year's accounts. There was no charge added to Brentwood Council from Rochford in relation to last year. However, there was a charge the year before, which I know got raised when we were trying to set the fees last year. It has been agreed that there will be no charges sort of moving forward, but there hasn't been a refund, and I've been advised there won't be a refund in relation to that previous charge, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. So I think, well, it's quite frustrating, really, that we have had this a couple of times, and we can't get a clear answer on this. And it seems strange to me that we would have a fee that we've paid that we shouldn't have paid, and then we don't get that fee back somehow in a future year or whatever else. I understand the situation is that we, at least within this committee, we're not going to be giving it back, but I think we need to look at that outside of this committee to verify exactly what's going on, and whether or not we should get that back. But I do appreciate that we don't have the ability here to actually make that change. So I'm going to suggest we take that aspect of it offline, and we may have to, or we'll have to consider approving this with the understanding that we'll look into that later. But yeah, I'll leave that with you. So, are there any questions? Councillor Meyer.
Just to pick up on what you just said there, obviously I'm Vice Chair of Finance and Resources.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable to me, so I will be picking that up as an action to follow up with the Section 105 officer after this meeting, okay? And we'll send the feedback from there to the members of this committee so they're aware of what's happened here and whether there's any actions arising. That's a large amount of money for me. We need to scrutinise it. Okay, it's my pledge to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Yes, absolutely. You know, this certainly needs to be looked at from some of the other committee chairs, and yeah, that would be fantastic. So, thank you very much for that. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any other questions. I don't really have too much to add. It was quite straightforward. I know we have gone through these all these reports before and spreadsheets. If we're okay with that, I shall read out the recommendation, which is to agree the proposed fees and charges as set out in Appendix 1 for the 2026/2027 financial year for the relevant licensing functions. I'm happy to move this. Do I have a seconder?
Once again, I'm happy to second that, unless anybody else wants to do it cross-party, but I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Minor. Unless there's anything else, we shall go to the vote. By show of hands, can members please indicate for? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That is the end of our meeting then. So thank you everyone for your attendance.